It started like any other affair does, slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, until it became something I couldn't ignore. Something that I couldn't let go of, even if I wanted to. The truth is, I never wanted to stop. I told myself I would, but the reality of it was much more complicated. It all began at a company event. It was one of those annual gatherings. Nothing particularly glamorous, just an evening for people in the office to socialize, mingle, and pretend we weren't all just looking for an excuse to leave the office early. I had been with my partner for years at that point, comfortable in the routine of our relationship, yet something was missing. I had convinced myself that this was normal, that the spark we once had would eventually fade, and that wasn't the worst thing in the world. We had built a life together, one that didn't necessarily need to be fueled by passion. Stability was enough. Or so I thought. And then he walked into the room. At first it was nothing. Just a passing glance across the crowded room. He was there with a group of colleagues I didn't recognize, and he had that kind of presence about him. Not the sort that shouted for attention, but the one that quietly drew people in. The kind of presence that made you feel like you wanted to know more. I remember that moment so clearly. The way he looked at me, not in a way that was overt or flirtatious, but in a way that made me feel as though I were the only person in the room. I caught his eye, and for a brief second, the rest of the world seemed to fade away. It wasn't love at first sight, not exactly, but it was something. It was the beginning of something I would never be able to undo. I didn't know what to do with the feeling. So, like any person who is unsure of their emotions, I ignored it. I pretended that I hadn't felt that pull, that I wasn't suddenly keenly aware of his presence in a way I hadn't been before. But of course that didn't last. The next day, we ended up in the same meeting. A simple project discussion, nothing particularly important. Yet, there we were, sitting next to each other. And this time, the tension between us was palpable. Every word he said, every glance he threw my way seemed charged with something I couldn't quite place, but I felt it deep in my chest. I could tell he felt it too. There was an unspoken understanding between us, an undeniable connection that neither of us had the words for. It wasn't long before the first private conversation took place. He had approached me in the hallway, his casual smile hiding the intensity behind his eyes. He asked about my weekend plans. Simple, innocent enough, but his voice carried something else, something I couldn't ignore. The small talk lingered for a few moments longer than it should have, and then, as I turned to leave, he asked, "Maybe we could grab a coffee sometime." It was the simplest of invitations, yet it set off a cascade of emotions in me, emotions I didn't know how to manage. I should have said no. I should have declined, told him I wasn't interested, reminded myself that I had a life outside of this place. But instead, I found myself smiling, agreeing to meet up. It was supposed to be casual. A coffee, a conversation between two colleagues, nothing more. But when I met him that afternoon, everything changed. The coffee shop was crowded with people, most of them just stopping in for a quick cup before rushing off to their busy lives. But we found a quiet corner, away from prying eyes, and began to talk. What started as small talk quickly deepened into something else. We talked about everything, our jobs, our families, our ambitions. We talked about things I hadn't even realized I wanted to talk about. It felt safe. It felt easy. But as the conversation shifted, I felt something stir inside me. I felt alive in a way I hadn't in a long time. It was there, in that moment, that I realized that I wasn't just enjoying his company. I was falling into a trap I hadn't prepared for. I had told myself this was just a harmless meeting. But that meeting wasn't harmless. It was the beginning of something that would change me. We met a few more times after that, under the guise of casual meetings, discussions about work, the usual excuses. But each time, the tension between us grew stronger. We found excuses to meet, to talk, to spend time together. And with each passing day, I could feel myself getting drawn deeper into something I couldn't control. At some point, I stopped denying it. I couldn't ignore the chemistry between us. I couldn't pretend that the moments we shared, however fleeting, didn't matter. I tried to tell myself that I was just indulging in a fantasy, that it didn't mean anything, that I was in control. But the truth was, I was addicted. Addicted to the way he made me feel, to the attention he gave me, to the fact that he saw me in a way that no one else did. One night, after one of our late-night meetings, everything changed. The conversation turned from casual to intimate, and for the first time, I felt the undeniable urge to kiss him. I could feel it in the air between us, in the way his breath had quickened, in the way his hands brushed against mine as we spoke. I could hear my heart pounding in my ears as I leaned in. And when our lips met, I knew, deep in my bones, that this was no longer something innocent. This was something dangerous. The kiss wasn't just physical, it was electric. It was everything I had been suppressing, everything I had been longing for, but had never fully allowed myself to admit. And as we pulled away, I knew we had crossed a line. There was no going back. But despite the guilt, the confusion, the internal war that raged inside me, I didn't stop. I couldn't. And so began the secret affair that would haunt me for months. Every moment we spent together felt like a forbidden thrill, an escape from the monotony of my everyday life. But it wasn't just about the physical connection, the stolen kisses, the secret meetings. It was about something more, something I couldn't articulate. I felt alive in a way I hadn't in years. With him, I was someone else. Someone bold, someone daring, someone who wasn't afraid to take risks. But with every kiss, with every touch, with every moment we shared in secret, the guilt gnawed at me. I was lying to everyone, my partner, my friends, myself. I told myself it was just temporary, that eventually I would end it before it caused any real harm. But every time I tried to walk away, every time I tried to end it, he pulled me back in. His presence was intoxicating, and the thought of losing it, of losing him, terrified me more than anything. I couldn't walk away, even though I knew I should. The pull of the secret, of the love that was neither acknowledged nor allowed, was too strong. And so I kept lying, kept pretending, kept hiding. Every stolen moment felt like both a triumph and a tragedy, and I was caught in the middle of it, unable to find my way out. But the truth always finds a way to surface. Eventually, the secret became harder to keep. People began to notice the changes in me, how distant I was, how distracted I had become. My partner noticed the late nights, the empty spaces in our conversations, the absence of the intimacy we had once shared. They didn't say anything at first, but I could feel the distance between us widening, the unspoken questions hanging in the air. And then one night, after I had spent yet another evening with him, I came home to find my partner waiting for me. They didn't need to say anything. The silence between us spoke volumes. I could see the hurt in their eyes, the suspicion. It was only a matter of time before the truth came out. And when it did, it shattered everything. My affair had cost me everything I had once held dear, my relationship, my trust, my sense of self. I had become someone I didn't recognize, and I didn't know how to fix it. In the aftermath, the secret lover became just that, a secret buried in the ruins of a life I had lost. I tried to rebuild, tried to move on, but the weight of what had happened always lingered. I couldn't escape it. And I couldn't forget him, the lover who was never meant to be. The one I couldn't have, but couldn't let go of. The one that would always be a part of me, a shadow in my past that I couldn't escape.